Hey there guys, and welcome to a new episode of Map Progression. In Map Progression we take a detailed look at the Black Ops 2 maps and use this information to create an ideal creator class setup for each map and the playstyle you'll need to utilize to maximize your effectiveness. So I'm here to make sure that your Black Ops 2 abilities aren't going stale, so it's time for some progression, it's time for Map Progression. So COVE is a small map set on a tropical island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's available as a part of the Vengeance DLC, and although it's a small map, the ability to maneuver around the outside of the rocks means there are several flanking channels that can be utilised to get to the other side. The centre of the map is a highly contested area in domination, especially with one side having the advantage of the plain for cover and the other side having a powerful sightline that can see over some of the enemy spawn. Sometimes the enemy can be difficult to spot on this map as they tend to camouflage into the rocks. So as with most maps in general, it's best to take an outside in kind of approach. So that's going around the outside routes of the map and then looking inwards instead of running through the middle. Obviously only do this where this is possible. In some situations it is better to go through the middle, but in general when you're just kind of getting a feel for the map and a feel for the game in general, go from the outside inwards, and this will give you the ability to see players against the backdrop of the ocean instead of the backdrop of the rocks where they can sometimes be a little bit difficult to spot. So here I'm going to show you the two spawns for either side, and most players do tend to run straight to the middle towards that plain kind of central area. Now I'd recommend running this way if you're running perhaps flak jacket, toughness and tactical mask, perks that are going to mean you're not so affected by flashbangs and grenades, and get ready for a fight. As soon as you run to that center area there's going to be people there ready to shoot at. Now those of you with longer range weapons or stealth approaches, I would go and flank the channels on either side because they're going to give you a slightly longer sight line and it's going to give you a chance to kind of assess the area before just going into an all-out battle. So it's completely up to you and your game style, but most of the time personally I do tend to run the flanks and the channels because I think it's better to get the jump on your enemy, try and get them from the side instead of just face on where they'll easily just be able to mow you down if they're in the correct position. So although this map is considered a small map, there are still a lot of medium to long range sightlines around the outside flanks. Now these flanks are actually the way that I suggest you maneuver around the map. I say you wouldn't really want to go through the middle unless there's an objective there or you absolutely need to get there. It's the safe route to go for some reason. So to utilize this, we're going to have a creator class which is going to allow you to be quite maneuverable to allow you to flank these effectively, but also is going to be combining a weapon which is very strong at a medium and longer range, and also doesn't really miss out too much in the close quarters combat situations as long as you are quite accurate with it. So the gun I'm going to be suggesting that you use on this map is the AN-94. This gun is a beast in the right hands on any map, but especially on this one if utilised in the right way. So I'm sure most of you know the AN-94, the first two bullets come out at 900 RPM and the rest of them come out at a slower but still effective 600 RPM. So it's all about getting those first two bullets on target, and if you can do that you can down people very quickly, and over ranges it tends to be best to actually burst the weapon to make the most out of that fast fire rate. So the fact that this gun is an automatic gun is going to mean that it's still going to be quite useful at those close range engagements that you're going to be getting yourself into sometimes, but it is an assault rifle, so it does have that long range damage profile, which is going to mean over the slightly longer sight lines you're still going to be able to down people quite quickly. Now COVE is actually still quite a small map if you remember, so although I'm going to be asking you guys to run the channels and maneuver into certain positions, you're not going to need to run that far. So we are going to speed you up a little bit because the assault rifles are a little bit slower than the submachine guns, but all we're going to do is add on a couple of attachments and a perk which should give you the extra boost you need with an assault rifle to get you up to speed. Now personally on my creator class setup I use 3 attachments with the AN-94. You can get away with 2, but the 2 that are going to speed you up that you put on this weapon are number 1 stock and number 2 quick draw. I also slap on the suppressor because I like to be kept off of that radar when I'm flanking the enemy. I suggest that you do as well, it makes it a lot easier and you can take them by surprise. Now stock obviously just speeds up your movement when you're aiming down sight, and this is really important when looking over kind of medium range sight lines and you want to move on to the next stage, but you don't want to zoom out and just sprint because that will mean that you're going to be less accurate if you need to fire. Keeping yourself aimed down sight while maneuvering around corners and into new areas can allow you to be extremely accurate compared to how you would be without that attachment. Also the quick draw is going to allow you to aim down sight quicker if you do get a little bit caught out, and I've got a perk which is going to help with this as well, which I'll explain in a second. Now the first perk I'm going to suggest is Hardline. This is because this is a very open air map, so all of the air support is extremely dominant. If you can get yourself a Warthog, Escort Drone, Stealth Chopper, or even Swarm, they are going to absolutely annihilate the opposition. So equipping Hardline, especially in objective game modes where streaks are a little easier to get, you're going to absolutely dominate and have some great games. Next perk I'm going to suggest is Toughness. Now because I've asked you to aim down sight a lot when going into new areas, obviously when firing the weapon you're going to want your aim to be spot on because you need those first 2 bullets to hit. That's where the effectiveness of this weapon is. So using this perk allows you to stay on target while you're taking incoming fire. It just makes it a little bit easier, gives you a little bit less flinch. So this can be a really useful perk in general. I know a lot of people who just can't play without Toughness. The final perk I'm going to suggest is Dexterity. This is for those situations where you do get a little bit caught out when you're sprinting around either of the channels or you're sprinting from one place to another trying to get yourself into the right position. Dexterity is going to allow you to bring up your weapon a little bit quicker after your sprint than you would if you didn't have this perk attached. Now this combined with Quick Draw means that you can have an extremely fast aim down sight time even if you're sprinting, and because with this weapon the first 2 bullets are so essential to get on target, the quicker you can be aiming down sight the better, so this is a great combination. Finally, for lethal or tactical equipment, I'm going to say you can choose your own, just whatever you feel most comfortable with. I feel comfortable with C4 because it's so powerful and I'm so used to using it. A grenade would also be useful as well, but if you want to try out a black hat or something, anything that you're comfortable with and you enjoy using, just go for that. Now in terms of playstyle, you are going to be using an automatic assault rifle, which does allow you the flexibility to do a little bit of everything. I wouldn't really recommend going into the middle of the map unless you know there's a nice piece of cover you can use, or the radar's up so you know exactly where the opposition is, or there's an objective that you have to get to, of course. For the most part you want to be kind of going around and the COVE areas, I suppose, like the namesake of the map, and utilising the fact that you have the stock, you have Quick Draw and you have Dexterity, which is going to allow you to be really accurate while aiming down sight. So aim down sight while moving along. Don't just camp in one place. You only get a couple of kills doing that, and once the enemy know where you are, they'll outmaneuver you and they will take you down. So work your way around the map, use the cover effectively, and just make sure you're aiming down sight, because this whole creator class setup is kind of worked around that, and that's where your advantage is going to be over other players. So finally we're going to have a look at some of the areas of key cover, places on the map where you can get an advantage over the opposition. The first place we're going to look at is actually where the ISA team spawns. It's just on this rock here on the left hand side, like I suppose the side that's closest to the sea. It kind of dips down a little bit and allows you to peek over that section. You get a lot of traffic coming through this left side if people are trying to flank round or there's an objective they're trying to get to, so that can be a good place to defend from. Make use of that little area. The second area, which is really important, is the tail end of the plane. Here you've got 2 or 3 boxes which are actually really important to make sure you're covered behind if you're anticipating people are actually going to be coming through at you from the other side. I don't recommend just sitting here all game. You're not going to achieve much, you're not going to get your objective, you'll get maybe a couple of kills, but obviously just don't run out into the open like an idiot. If you've got the opportunity and you're anticipating someone coming from the other side, use these boxes to make it a little bit easier for you to get the kill on them than it is for them to get the kill on you. The next spot, and probably the most important one, is in the cove next to the plane. This gives you a very good look at the B flag in domination, also into the enemy spawn if they're spawning on the other side. The only issue with this one is you need to watch your back a little bit, but other than that, this is a very powerful spot. The final spot is actually a really cheeky one. There are some yellow barrels on one side of the map, and these barrels can so easily be hid behind, especially if you crouch. If you crouch, you are very difficult to actually see here. So before you just flank through, you might want to just sit here for a second, make sure there's no enemies coming through. If there is, take them out from that spot, and then move on to the next area. So that's it for episode 2 of Map Progression. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've tried to make this series a little bit more ambitious than some of the other stuff I've done here on YouTube. And don't forget to smash that like button if you enjoyed the video and you think it deserves the like. So that's it for now, guys, and I'll see you next time.